The employees at this company never truly leave work because they have no memory of what happens after they clock out. Every time they step into the elevator at the end of the day, their eyes close on their own. When they wake up again, they're instantly refreshed, and the whole process lasts only a few seconds. By the time the elevator doors open, it's already 9 a.m., and they're facing another workday. In here, there is only Monday through Friday because the moment Friday ends, the weekend is automatically skipped, and it becomes Monday again. Even so, they remain full of energy and never feel the slightest bit tired. It turns out that before joining the company, every employee has a chip implanted into their brain. The chip splits a person into two identities. One exists only for work, while the other gets to enjoy life outside. The coworker you were working with 1 second becomes a complete stranger after work. Even the friendly aunt living next door could be the boss who loses her temper every day, only switching into her work identity after entering the office. The work identity has no memory of life after work, and once the day ends, it switches back to the personal identity. That identity has no memory of work, which is why the work identity never feels exhausted, because the moment they step into the elevator, the switch happens automatically. Meanwhile, the personal identity has already done all the sleeping for them, allowing them to work non-stop. Although the two identities can't share memories, they still share the same possessions, such as their family, house, and everything else. And all the money earned by the work identity is controlled by the personal identity, because these poor people have never truly left work. As usual, Mark arrives outside the company building. Every day, he sits in his car and cries for a while, then wipes away his tears with a tissue once he's done. After checking the time on his watch, he pulls himself together, puts on his ID badge, and gets out of the car. The parking lot is already filled with employee vehicles. He then heads to security on the severed floor and goes through the usual screening process. Once he enters the elevator, his identity will switch. Workmark walks down the white hallway and reaches into his pocket, only to find a damp tissue that seems to have tears on it. Confused, he has no memory of putting a used tissue into his pocket while at work. He throws it into the trash and heads to his desk to begin another day. Strangely, the supervisor who is never late hasn't shown up today. Just then, an assistant from the administrative department walks in and tells him that management wants to see him. That's when Mark learns that the supervisor has resigned. The news shocks Mark, because he's never heard of anyone leaving this company before. But the decision has already been approved by the board, and Mark is officially promoted to department supervisor. Instead of feeling excited about the promotion, however, he feels uneasy. Petey is also his best friend in the company, and there's no way he would leave without saying goodbye. But because of the company's confidentiality agreement, Mark can't get any more information from management. According to company procedure, the newly promoted Mark must handle the orientation of a new employee. On the monitor, Helly wakes up on the conference table, just as she did 2 years earlier. In reality, she has woken up on this table many times before, but each time her memories were erased. Still dazed, she hears a voice.
Hi there. You on the table?
It's Mark calling out to her. He needs to conduct her onboarding questionnaire.
Who is that?
Because Helly has only just awakened, she's completely disoriented and has no idea why she's here. She wants to leave, but the door is locked and won't open.
Hey! Let me out!
Her reaction makes both people in the room nervous, completely unaware that management is monitoring their every move. Mark steps outside briefly and tries to calm Helly down. Next comes the onboarding process. Since he's never interviewed a new employee before, he keeps glancing at the surveillance camera, making him look extremely uncomfortable. As a result, he can only stick to the prepared script and read the questions exactly as written. But Helly refuses to answer, making the situation awkward for Mark. He patiently explains everything, only for her to grab the speaker on the table and throw it at him. Right now, Helly wants nothing more than to escape. Mark tells her to calm down because neither of them can leave until the interview is finished. Touching the wound on his forehead, he explains that when he woke up on this same table years ago, his reaction was almost exactly the same because he couldn't remember anything either. He was angry and unsettled, but a work identity only possesses memories related to work. With no better way to comfort her, he can only continue reading questions from the form. But Helly starts resisting again.
Let me the fuck out of here!
She still insists on leaving, and all Mark can do is helplessly look toward the surveillance camera. Behind the camera, management is watching everything unfold. They instruct Mark to repeat what he just said. That's when he learns that Helly must request to leave 3 times before she can actually leave. Finally, Mark reaches the last page of the form and quickly finishes the interview process. This time, Helly finally gets her wish and leaves the room. Most new employees react this way when they first arrive, desperately wanting to escape this place. The The company doesn't even try to stop them and has a special resignation process set up for new hires. Mark points Helly toward the exit that supposedly leads out of the company, but he doesn't follow her because company policy strictly forbids an employee's work identity from meeting their outside identity. Helly doesn't care about any of that and is simply thrilled that she's finally getting out. Instead of leaving, Mark quietly waits around the corner as if he already knows what is going to happen. Helly walks up to a door labeled Severed Floor Threshold. After hesitating for a moment, she pushes it open, but in the very next second, she's right back where she started. She can't believe what just happened. Looking through the window, she can clearly see a staircase outside, so she opens the door again, but the result is exactly the same. This time, she sprints through it with all her strength, only to end up crashing hard onto the floor. She rushes back to Mark and asks if she's dead, if this is some kind of hell after death. Clearly, it isn't.
Left, but you came back.
I did not.
You did.
Instead of explaining further, Mark shows her a video. It's an orientation recording made by Helly herself just 2 hours earlier. In the video, she agrees to separate her work and personal identities and acknowledges that the procedure is irreversible. Watching herself make that statement leaves Helly stunned because she has absolutely no memory of it. After all, she is now the work identity, and everything that happens outside this building is completely inaccessible to her. She really did leave a moment ago, but the instant she crossed the threshold, her outside identity took over and then sent her right back. As a result, the memory of leaving vanished as well. Now she has no choice but to accept reality and report to her workstation. Mark's point is already clear. The reason work identities remain trapped in the office forever is because their outside identities keep choosing to come back. Technically, once the switch happens after work, they've already left the company. In theory, they're free and could simply choose never to return. But who would turn down a life where they never have to work? Their body comes to the office, but they never remember doing any work. In their minds, it's as if they never worked at all, yet they still get paid. It's basically getting all the rewards without any of the effort. Their job itself is surprisingly simple. The entire department has only 4 people, including Mark and Helly. They're part of the macro data refinement department, so naturally their work revolves around data. Mark opens a computer file and a huge collection of numbers appears on the screen. The numbers are divided into 4 categories. Helly's job is to sort them into the appropriate digital bins and send them upstairs. The strange part is that the sorting criteria are based entirely on the refiner's emotions. In other words, Helly's own feelings determine where the numbers belong. Certain groups of numbers trigger specific emotions. Sometimes fear, sometimes anger, and sometimes excitement. She simply sorts them according to how they make her feel. When Helly realizes this is her job, she can hardly believe it. The work seems ridiculously simple and even a little absurd. She immediately loses interest and asks Mark if she can quit. Mark tells her that, technically, she can, as long as both identities submit resignation requests. The problem is that those requests are usually denied, and convincing the outside identity is even harder. After all, who would willingly give up a paycheck for doing no work? Since Petey has left the department, a new team photo needs to be taken, so Mark quietly hides the old picture before everyone gathers. But Helly still hasn't abandoned her plans to escape. As soon as the photo session ends, she puts her next plan into motion.
Helly, what are you doing?
Oh, I just think I'm not gonna work here anymore.
She writes the words, "I quit," on a sticky note and shows it to Mark. She refuses to spend eternity sorting emotions like a machine. She wants to get outside and actually live her life. Mark tells her that's impossible. A work identity can never leave the building because the entire facility is equipped with code detectors that can identify whether someone is a work identity or an outside identity. But Helly isn't convinced. She believes it's worth trying anyway.
Helly?
It's worth trying. She races toward the elevator, swipes her badge, and jumps inside. The moment she enters, the code detectors are triggered. Red warning lights instantly flood the elevator. Alarms begin echoing throughout the department, and the doors slam shut. Mark is left outside while Helly becomes trapped inside the elevator. Just then, a man calmly walks over. Instinctively, Helly backs away. The man opens the elevator doors, and the alarms immediately stop. Then he orders her to step out. When he sees the resignation note in her hand, his expression turns serious, and he tells her to come with him. The company has a special way of dealing with disobedient employees. Mark quickly steps in and tries to stop him. He explains that Helly is brand new and doesn't know the rules yet. If anyone deserves punishment, it should be him for failing to train her properly. The man accepts the explanation and lets Helly go. Moments later, Mark follows him to a room labeled Break Room. He opens the door and walks inside, and the man outside immediately locks it behind him. The room is narrow, barely wide enough for one person to pass through. At the end of the hallway is another door, and management is already waiting behind it. Meanwhile, after her failed escape attempt, Helly starts questioning the other employees. Surely there has to be a loophole somewhere. Is there any place in the building without code detectors? The overweight coworker tells her to give up on the idea of smuggling messages out, but Helly refuses to quit. She is determined to find a way to tell her outside self that she wants to resign. First, she submits an official resignation request. Then, while Mark is leading a department meeting, she secretly slips into the restroom. After she doesn't come out for a long time, Mark becomes suspicious and walks over to check on her. Through the doorway, he notices Helly writing something on her arm. Afraid she's about to cause another problem, Mark forgets about privacy and pushes the door open.
Writing the note directly on your skin.
He immediately understands what she's trying to do and explains that the code detectors can identify written messages anywhere, even words written directly on the body. Mark once again tries to convince her to abandon the idea of escaping, but Helly has already made up her mind. Soon, she launches another attempt. She refuses to believe the detectors are truly that effective. This time, she hides a resignation note inside a pen cap and plans to swallow it. Her idea is simple. When her outside identity eventually uses the bathroom, the message will come out and reveal what her work identity wants. She pours herself a glass of water and prepares to swallow the cap, but just as she's about to do it, Mark appears.
The code detectors can read messages hidden inside the body as well.
With no other choice, Helly spits the cap back out. Still, she has no intention of giving up. As long as an opportunity presents itself, she'll keep trying to escape. But can she actually find a way out of this company?